How's it going, guys? My name is Zach with the Movie Castle, and today we're going to be taking a look at Open Water 2, Adrift. This is from 2006 and is directed by Hans Horn. This movie stars Susan May Pratt, Richard Speight Jr., if you guys are Supernatural fans, that's the Trickster, and also Niklaus Lange. And a few things, I guess, this technical stuff we have to get out of the way first. Like the original movie, it advertises itself as a true story. This is not actually the case, it's just to fit with the branding of the first movie. But B, it's not a true story, it's actually based on a short story. A short story written by Koji Suzuki, author of Ring. Yeah, the book that became Ringu, and then the American remake Ring, that Ring and the Grudge kind of started off that J-horror boom over here in the States. Yeah, really cool to see something adapted from the guy that wrote Ring. That's really cool. And actually, this was originally going to be its own independent production. This was just going to be Adrift. But then, the first Open Water did so well, the studio wanted to make a sequel and saw Adrift and said, hey, close enough, right? They're stuck in the ocean, just say it's based on a true story, and slap the Open Water title on the front. And you know what? It probably came out better than just rushing out a sequel. You know, taking a movie that already had good legs and giving it a bigger IP to stand on. It worked out okay this time around. But yeah, technically not supposed to be a sequel to Open Water, which I think was actually the case with the third movie as well. And fun fact, just to make things a little more confusing, they actually would remake this movie as just Adrift a long time later. I think like 10 or so years later, Adrift came out and it was, without the Open Water branding, and it was slightly different. So, yeah, interesting, weird little history behind this movie. But now that we got all that out of the way, the movie itself, you may think, okay, you had a surprise hit, and now we're rushing out a sequel. A lot of people had kind of low expectations, right? And while the movie's not perfect, I don't want to say that by any means, I do want to say I find this movie significantly better than the first. A few things. The characters. I like the characters so much better in this one. I mean, first off, there's more of them. And that just simple math, you have more to do and talk about. But the characters are actually old friends with a good amount of history behind them, and each of the characters has a backstory and gimmicks behind them, so they all have their own little unique voice. I really felt that one of the areas that was really lacking in Open Water 1 was character beats and interesting things. They were just, I wanted to know the characters in Open Water 1 better, and you do get that here. Also, Open Water 2 is much more, technical and puzzly than the first one. I really hated in the first Open Water, they realized, oh, we're stuck in a current. There's nothing we can do. Guess we're just gonna die then. I hated that, yeah, okay, it's a scary situation to be in, but I'm watching a whole movie. I want the characters to do more and try things. And there's a whole bunch for the characters to do and try here, trying to figure out a way out of their situation. It's significantly better. Now that being said, there are a few things that the first movie did have going for it. One, the first movie was much more realistic and naturalistic, and you kind of believed it more as a true story than the second one. But that being said, a lot of that realism kind of turned out boring, so whatever. But the other thing, and this may just be me, that the first had going for it over the second, is sharks. I mean, yeah, the sharks were minimal in the first one, But in this movie, I think they just say, oh, something brushed past my leg, but I can't see what it is, so there's like a vague moment of an implied shark, but not enough for me to say this goes in my Sharks of Summer series. You know, I wish we got some hungry sharks in here. You know, that's what I'm saying. I mean, they're on the Blu-ray box, you know? I think they come back for part 3, though. But anyway, that being said, though, there are some moments that might frustrate people, especially in regards to the technical elements. I don't want to spoil it too much, but there's a few moments in here that I'm like, I would have got out at that point. I wouldn't have made that mistake. I would have done this differently. And there are some very frustrating moments. I'll cover them later, though. And it is, again, a smaller movie. I don't know if confinement thriller's 100% the right word, but it is one of those trapped in one location movies, and I know they're not for everybody. But anyway, all that being said, it is, I think, better than the first, has more going on, a little bit frustrating at times, not as naturalistic, but overall, I think definitely an improvement. Anyway, without further ado, let's talk a bit about the plot. I'm not going to be doing any major spoilers, but I do want to say my piece on a few plot points and make sure you guys have a basic understanding as to what the movie's about. Again, I won't do significant spoilers, won't go near the end. So we open up, actually, a scene that I really liked. We get a found footage prologue. For those of you who are not found footage fans, this is just the opening scene. Don't worry. That being said, I've been watching a lot of found footage lately, and I felt like, VHS followed me into open water. But it's a really good scene. It's these characters goofing around a year, I think? A few years before the main movie. And we get to see that they're old friends. It establishes that quite clearly, that they have a good relationship. One of them's goofing around with the camera and falls down. Not terribly, but he does take a bit of a tumble, and we get to see the group's attitude change from goofing around to, oh man, dude, are you okay? And we get to see, you know, goofiness to concern. It foreshadows later in the movie. I like it. But anyway, we jump out of found footage for the rest of the movie. Years have passed, and they're going on a party boat weekend. And we get to see who the characters are and where they are now. We get one of the characters who's the rich captain character, and he owns the boat that they're going to go sailing on. He has a young blonde who, yeah, she kind of falls into that young blonde party girl stereotype, but she's also not really part of the friend group, which makes for an interesting dynamic. On top of that, we get two other characters that are a little bit forgettable. I think they're like a will they, won't they couple, and like the girl's a nurse or something. The middle two aren't the best. Tell me if I forgot something about them. But two more characters, and then the mains. And the main character is a husband and wife, and they have a new little baby. That's cool. They're starting to, you know, set up a stable life and future. That's great. Now, the wife has a strange fear of water. Something happened when she was in a small boat that resulted in her dad drowning. I'm not exactly sure the specifics because the flashbacks are all artsy and hard to make out. Maybe, I don't know. Did I miss something? Dad hit his head, I guess, and drowned, and the girl's too little to pick him up. So she's traumatized and afraid of the water. So she's going on, and she's going to be the only one wearing her life vest. They all party, and they start to swim. The only two left on the boat are the captain, the rich guy, and also the main girl, because she doesn't want to swim in the water. And the captain tells this story, I had a friend who was afraid of clowns, so he took him to the circus. Hardy har har, grabs her up and jumps in the water. And then we get, again, an overly artsy moment where she flips out when she's in the water. And we do get this from time to time where it can be a little funny, where the movie suddenly takes itself very, very seriously. But whatever. flips out when she's in the water, and when she wakes up, they've all realized that there's no ladder. They're trapped in the water with no way to get up. And the thing is, though, that artsy moment where she's flipping out kind of drowns out the lines of, wait, where's the ladder? And that's your key setup for the whole movie. I know we're trying to be cool and artsy, but maybe wait till we're back into being a normal movie before they realize, because, again, the hook for the whole movie, you really needed a character looking right at the camera and going, we forgot the ladder! We're stuck in the ocean! Yeah, but whatever. Small gripe, I guess. Anyway, so after that, they're stuck, and they begin to kind of search things out and try to figure out how to get back on the boat. And there's much more technical stuff for them to do. Yeah, I hinted at earlier, the first open water, realizing they were stuck in the current, there's nothing they could do, meant that they weren't trying anything for most of the movie. And here they try every little thing. Hey, I found a handle on the back of the boat. We can rest our legs. You think we can jump up and reach that flag? Maybe. I don't know. There's a little hatch on the side, but I can't get it open. Learning, exploring, doing stuff, and puzzling it out. That's really good. And also a bunch of character moments, you know? The captain, he's the rich guy, so easy to paint him as the rich jerk. But on top of that, he's the one that jumped in the water with the only other remaining person. And, you know, it was his vacation, his idea, his boat, and he jumped in the water without checking the ladder. Whole bunch of guilt right on this guy here. And then you get his girlfriend, who's the group's outsider. She's just a easy date, and they don't really know her. So, you know, there's that. The main character, the mom, her baby is up there. Baby's not gonna throw down the ladder, but also a ton more tension. If we don't get up, the baby's just gonna die of neglect. That is super dark. And also, like, she's the only one who has a life vest. What if some other people get a little jealous of that? There's a whole lot going on here. But like I said, there's some stuff that doesn't work. I mean, there's this idea that the captain character kind of liked the main character at one point in time, and maybe he's jealous. Which, at this point, I'm like, I don't know how much that matters, dude. You're gonna die in the ocean, you know? And then there's, like I said, a lot of technical things. Like, at one point, the characters find a super useful item, but when it doesn't work right away and doesn't look like it's going to, one of the characters just throws it in the ocean. And you're like, dude, I mean, yeah, it wasn't working right away, but don't just throw it in the ocean. That could have really helped you out. There's several other scenes, you know, it's like maybe they're extremely unlucky, or a lot of it's just that they're stupid. They'll be trying to climb something and they don't send, like, you know, the littlest girl, you know? There's this scene where they try to make a rope out of excess clothing and they don't send the little blonde girl to climb up. You know, it's a fragile, thin rope. And then what they wind up doing with this rope is just stupid. What happens to it, frustrating moments. And something happens to two of the guys, and I'm trying not to spoil it, but a whole bunch of, ooh, that is just extremely unlucky that happened to you, man. And it's just kind of one of those, you know, it doesn't necessarily have the impact of tragedy, just like, oof, dude, really, can't believe. But, you know, again, trying to talk about a movie without spoiling it. Needless to say, frustrating moments, and just several times I'm like, I could have done that better. And it's one of those things that confinement thrillers have a tendency to get into. You know, you need to keep your characters in one location, and the audience is invited to puzzle it out themselves. You're going to get a lot of audience members going, I could have done better. And I mean, I probably could have. But, you know, that being said, it's still fine, you know. There are still good moments. You know, like there is a gag where the blonde girl has this inflatable dolphin, and, you know, it's just a fun little swim thing, but now that's a vital piece of equipment and might help us up. So, like I said, the technical elements are much more there, much more involved, much more interesting than the first, but it does lead to frustrating moments. And there's also, you know, it is still a smaller film, even though this is bigger, has more characters, more jokes, more character development, trying more things. It is still a small confinement thriller, and if you're not fans of those, that still is what this movie's about. But overall, I do want to say, significantly better than the first. Definitely would recommend it. Sadly, no sharks this time around, but whatever. Anyway, to everyone who's watched so far, thank you for watching. To everyone who's liked and subscribed, thank you. You really are helping the channel out. I'll leave a relevant playlist on the bottom. This should be... How about my confinement thrillers playlist? I think that's a little bit young of a playlist, so if you have any more confinement thrillers to recommend to me, I'd be willing to hear them out. But you can see my review for the first Open Water there, as well as the movie Frozen, where they're all stuck up on the ski lift. Anyway, have a good day. I'll see you guys again very, very soon. Relevant playlist on the bottom. Have a good day now.